What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode, we have Dave Mead. Dave is a longtime Austinite and the co-founder and chief marketing officer for Rambler Sparkling Water. Y'all may be familiar with Rambler. They've kind of grown to become a pretty well-known Austin brand and have spread across the nation at this point. And so it was very fun getting to talk with Dave and hear about the backstory, how they got it started. He turns out to have been a professional photographer for a large portion of his life before starting the company. And so he had a lot of fun stories to tell and just old Austin stuff that was great. And on a side note, I'm very excited to announce that Rambler is actually our first sponsor. And so very cool to have sponsor join the 1776 team as our first sponsor. And I just think it's really neat to have a local company like this that's really putting their money where their mouth is. I mean, you can look at this can that they did, helping Texas State Parks, celebrating it. And it's pretty cool to be able to look down and see, Texas State Parks on a brand like this working together. And so we're very excited to have them as a sponsor for the podcast. Even more excited that Dave came on and shared a few stories with us. So I hope y'all enjoy.
I sometimes get in the way of things, having been a photographer, and I got interviewed in Dallas a couple weeks ago for like NBC DFW for a thing, and we were shooting out in the parking lot, and they were having some technical difficulties on like just lighting and shit. Mm-hmm. So I started throwing terms around like flagging, and they're like, how do you know these terms?
Allison, your friend from Explore Ranches, when she was on, I'd mentioned that you may be coming on, and she went on just how good of a guy you were, and I asked her, I was like, Dave seems like one of those guys that he just knows everybody, and it's like, I don't know how, and she was like, well, he was a photographer and this and that, and so I'm curious. I mean, what's your history? I know you're an old.
How do I know everybody? It's because I'm old, dude. Man, I grew up in Houston. My dad brought me to a UT football game when I was in 7th grade, and I remember it being on a day it was like 72 degrees and not a cloud in the sky, and he took me to Schultz Beer Garden, and we sat on the 50-yard line, and Texas destroyed Missouri, and then I saw Lake Austin and the hills, and I just remember thinking, this is nothing like Houston. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I am, but this is where I want to live my life. And
this is the spot.
Yeah, so UT was the only school that I ever really wanted to attend, and I went to UT and stayed here, and so I've been here most of my life. Been here since the late 80s.
Wow.
So I've seen it explode, and I've got a deep network. I'm really fortunate to have a lot of friends and know a lot of people, and so it happens that I that conversation comes up a lot, that I know a lot of people, but comes with age.
Yeah, I first met you. I'm friends with Jordan Vaughn and his wife Ava, and they had a get together at Zilker Brewing, and you were there.
I
think that's when it was a long time ago, and that's when you were kind of on my radar. And Rambler seems like it just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I know you guys obviously aren't an overnight success, but it seems like all of a sudden Rambler was just like this iconic Austin brand to me, and so I'm kind of curious. I know it's not an overnight success. I mean, how'd that all play out?
Well, it didn't come out of nowhere, and it took a minute. And I will tell you that we actually had the idea of doing a sparkling water and giving Austinites an alternative to Topo Chico probably in 2014. We had the idea.
Okay.
That was 10 years ago. And it took us 4 years really to gather ourselves, come up with a mineral formula. We hired a water scientist. Came up with a mineral formula that was, had calcium, magnesium, potassium, but that was sodium free, and one that was made locally in Texas, that was sustainable and how we sourced it, that was in infinitely recyclable aluminum cans versus heavy glass bottles, and then one that had a give back program. So really, the idea of Rambler came from us drinking a lot of Topo Chico. And it was funny, Austinites will really latch on to a local brand like nobody. Mm-hmm. And so I think, everybody in Austin was drinking Topo Chico, and we had sort of as a city had kind of adopted Topo Chico as if it was our own, as if it was like a local sparkling water. And then we recognized, wait a minute, we're drinking water from Mexico, in heavy glass bottles. This doesn't really make any sense. So 4 years later, after having the idea, We had, developed a mineral formula. We created the brand Rambler. The packaging, I think everyone really loves it. We like to say Rambler is the sparkling water that looks like a beer and drinks like a beer.
Never heard that before. That's good.
Yeah, and it works. There's a lot of folks who are sober or those who want to drink responsibly, and in the bars and in the restaurants and in the music venues, at concerts. It just works really well. But it's a really great tasting sparkling water. The mineral blend is a proprietary mineral blend that we developed in our filtration system. But again, it was really a way for us to offer Austinites and Texans an alternative to Topo Chico. And so that's really why and how we got to market. But yeah, in 2018 we launched with the original formula. And this can, we can talk about this whenever you're ready, but this is, I think a lot of people will recognize this can as obviously being commemorative.
Yeah, let's break it down. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the state parks, obviously, and conservation, and so this can, there's a reason why I bought this one in the store. I think it looks great, so I'd love if you want to dive into it.
Well, this can actually celebrates 100 years of Texas State Parks, which was last year, which was 2023. And so we teamed up with Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, which is our local partner. We also partner with American Rivers on the national level, but here in Texas, when we first got to market in 2018, we reached out to them before we even had a product and just said, hey, we're working on a sparkling water, a mineral formula, but we do not want to be just another water on the shelf. We want to make sure that if we're taking from Texas that we're giving back. Would you want to partner with us? And so we talked through it, and they agreed and loved the idea of it. And so we developed we came up with an agreement and a partnership. And so
was that before you were in stores? I mean, before you were
before we were ever in
company?
stores.
Okay.
We had the formula, we had the packaging, we had the partnership solidified with Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, and so that's how last year we had a conversation with them and said, hey, look, this is the 100 years of Texas State Parks. Let's do a commemorative packaging and present it to HEB and see how they feel about it. We went to HEB and said, hey, how would you guys like to partner up with us and do this commemorative packaging celebrating 100 years of Texas State Parks? And you'll get exclusivity, like you'll be the only retailer carrying this product.
Oh, I didn't realize that. How cool.
Oh, yeah. And so Rambler, Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, and HEB partnered up on this commemorative packaging, which we're really proud of. And that's why on the back of the can you'll see Our Texas, Our Future, which is their sustainability program. And then Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation with a little story about it. And then on the front, we just, wanted to create a packaging that sort of elevated the flora and fauna of Texas. And that's why you've got the bald eagle. A lot of folks might not even know that there are bald eagles in Texas.
Is that an ocelot? What's the...
Yeah, that's an ocelot. Yeah. There's a horny toad on here. There's a whitetail.
We might have to be careful. The mic might pick up the can. You're fine, but...
There's I think that's a warbler over there on the left. So it's fun.
Very cool.
Yeah, and so this packaging is still on some shelves, but this was really celebrating 2023 and 50 years.
What do you, obviously this can will probably go away at some point. We can't, but is this, what's your expectations with this can? Are you going to leave it around for a little while or?
No, the idea was that this was only going to be a program for 2023.
Okay.
And, it's got the gold top on it, and obviously, obviously this thing sticks out on the shelf and looks commemorative, and it is. But the idea was that it was for 2023. There may be some inventory left, and the program works so well that I think HEB agreed that they would continue the program into the first quarter of this year.
Very cool.
So you can still find it on shelves in certain HEB stores.
I'm gonna have to save a can and turn it into a candle or something. It's a cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a keeper.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So you were saying, we at the beginning, as we founded it. So who's part of your team? I mean, who is it? Who's the group that put this together?
So the three founders are myself, James Moody, and Jeff Truxas. We're the three founders. We've got a really great team. Many are here in Austin. We've got an office over on East Cesar Chavez, but our team now is about 20 people, and where we've got sales reps in Dallas and in San Antonio and in Houston, and we've got a national sales team, and they're doing a really great job of really trying to get us into retailers in different parts of the country. And so right now I think nationwide we're in like 7,500 outlets.
Wow.
So
great.
we got to market in 2018, and so now we're going on 6 years, and there are days when it feels like we're still a startup and that we're just crawling, but then there are days when I have to stop and just recognize, holy cow, we're in grocery stores all over the country. And I have friends who reach out from different parts of the country and different cities saying, man, I just found you guys in my local bodega in Brooklyn.
Wow.
And so and it's hard to keep track of some of these markets and some of these stores because they're large retailers that pull from the major distributors, but then there are a lot of like independent groceries who are picking it up from the distributors, and we have no way of really tracking it. And so oftentimes it's just kind of a nice surprise when somebody calls and says, hey, I found you at my local bodega or wherever it might be, or a bar or a restaurant.
Yeah, how cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's amazing. So when you guys had this idea, drinking Topo Chico, and you're like, let's do our own water company. I mean, I want to break that down. There had to have been some good liquor or something involved. I mean, you guys sitting around a campfire and said, let's do this own thing. I mean, is there any fun stories on how that really played out?
Well, it actually came to be because James Moody and I were actually talking about starting a bar restaurant together. And we were actually going through the motions of looking at real estate. We're looking at property in East Austin. And the idea was that there's a really, if you want to really break it down, there's a restaurant in New Orleans called Port of Call, and it's an old historic burger joint. It's a dive, and they're known for their like a burger and a baked potato and this ridiculous drink. I think it's called a monsoon or something. I don't know. And we love that place, and we both love a good nautical themed bar. And so we thought, man, let's see if we can pull this off here in Austin, but elevate it a bit, maybe pull in Aaron Franklin, see if he wants to do the menu. And so we had big plans to do like a bar restaurant. And then we also recognized that we were all drinking Topo Chico and that everyone was drinking sparkling water. And we thought, man, with the decline of soda and just the explosion of sparkling water and the fact that we're drinking copious amounts of Topo Chico every day, maybe we start our own sparkling water, and we'll use this restaurant bar as a sort of a launching pad and a place to introduce it. And so, but the more we started looking at doing this bar restaurant, and the more we started looking at the sparkling water, we just thought, man, this is too good of an opportunity, and this would be a lot of fun, and let's just punt this bar restaurant. Let's go all in on the sparkling water. And so that's when we just put everything into it. But it took a while because I was a photographer, had a family.
So at that point, were you just full-time photographer?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of freelance out
well,
there?
Well, and James, he's got many businesses. He's an entrepreneur and has a lot going on. And Jeff Truxas, our third partner, he was busy. We all have families, and so it was a bit of a slow crawl, but we were pretty determined to make it happen. And so, 4 years later, we got to market. No restaurant, but all in on this. And we presented, the first venue, the first outlet for Rambler ended up being the Mohawk, which is James Moody's bar, live music venue. So that was sort of like the launching pad for Rambler. And then Aaron Franklin, who's a good friend of ours, he wanted it for his restaurant. So, when the Mohawk brought it in and Franklin Barbecue brought it in, then there was a lot of people in Austin who said, I want to try that. Mm-hmm. So really fortunate that we, had a lot of support from the beginning. And, and then it just kind of took off, and different bars and restaurants started pulling it in. Michael Fotoge, who's a dear friend, who has Olame and Mayday and some other businesses, other restaurants, he reached out and said, "Hey, I want Rambler," and that was really a really exciting opportunity because that's when we realized, holy cow, like we're in an aluminum can, and it looks like a beer. I mean, clearly our branding is we were inspired by vintage beer packaging when we developed this thing, but that's when we realized, man, Rambler being served at Olame, like one of Austin's most upscale, one of Austin's finest restaurants, that's pretty amazing. We figured that maybe like those types of restaurants might only want something in a glass bottle, But he said, no, man, I want it, and I'm going to put it on the menu, and we'll serve it out of the can, put it on the table. And so first time I ever went over to Ola May and saw a Rambler on the menu, and they delivered it on a silver tray and set it on a white tablecloth. I just thought, man, this might work.
Yeah, how cool.
Yeah, people liked it, and it's working. So again, like I think we're 7,500 outlets all over the country, and we're here in Austin. We're in a good bit of the bars and restaurants. We're in most of the grocery stores, but there's still our what we like to call water wars. There's a lot of options out there, and and I think Austinites in particular and Texans, and now nationally, I think people are recognizing this as being a better sparkling water, in that we taste better because we take the time to purify the water, put minerals back into the water, hold back the sodium. So it's, you want your water to taste like something. You don't want to drink a purified water with no minerals added back. I mean, obviously it doesn't taste as good, but also your body will actually, or purified water will actually leach minerals from your body. So, I mean, calcium, magnesium, potassium, all the things that come in Rambler, they're good for you. It's better tasting. So I think people are recognizing that we're a premium sparkling water.
Yeah, it's great to hear too about being in the bars and restaurants. I never thought about it till you just brought it up. But Forrest and I don't drink. Actually, so that pretty hits home. Be able to go out and order one of these. I love that dynamic to it. So when you guys decided to embark on this venture and you want to start a water company, as entrepreneurs and businessmen ourselves, I'm fascinated. What was the first week like? I mean, who's your first call? How do you do that? I mean, where are you getting your water? I mean, that whole breakdown.
So we actually got to market. These are great questions. We got to market through Austin Beer Works. We love their beer.
So did you pick up the phone and call Beer Works and say, hey, we want to do water help kind of deal?
We actually reached out to Austin Beer Works because we were having a hard time finding a co-packer that had the capacity that wanted to take us on. And we thought, man, maybe a brewery could help us take our mineral formula. They've got the water source. We don't want to tap sensitive water supplies. Like we're not taking water from a spring, from an aquifer. We wanted to use municipal water wherever we can get good, clean drinking water, but make it better through a filtration system that we developed, this limestone filtration system. We run the water through reverse osmosis, purify it, take out all the minerality and all the impurities, and then put back our own special mineral blend. So we reached out to Austin Beer Works and said, hey, man, we love your beer. We drink your beer. We have an idea for a sparkling water. We've got the formula. We've got the packaging. We've got Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation on board. And would you have any interest in helping us get to market and us using your canning line? And we pay you. And they said, yeah, let's look at it. So we worked through an agreement, and we used their facility for the first couple of years. We were making water at Austin Beer Works exclusively.
Wow. Here in town at their wow.
Yeah. So they would actually, like, once or twice a month, they would work into their production schedule. They would, clean out one of their big bright tanks and fill it full of water and put in our mineral blend, and we'd show up one morning with breakfast tacos, and we would taste the water and make sure that it was on point, and then we'd let her run, and they'd make a bunch of water for us, and then we'd get it out to the bars and the restaurants, and then we, knowing that we wanted to have a retail play too, we reached out to HEB and just said, hey, we've got a sparkling water that we'd like to pitch to you, and they gave us an opportunity to come drop samples in San Antonio. So I drove to San Antonio and dropped off some water, and they sampled the water, and then they called us back and said, hey, we'd like to have a meeting with you. We thought for sure that they were probably going to say, come back to us when you're in 12 packs, because Austin Beer Works doesn't do cartons. They only do the PackTech toppers, which I'm sure you've seen, the plastic PackTech toppers. So that was the way we got to market. And HEB, when we told them, hey, look, we're not yet in fridge packs, and we're only in 6 packs, which further sort of cemented us as like the sparkling water that looked like a beer and drank like a beer. I mean, it looks like a 6-pack of beer. They said, it's fine. That's actually a great trial for consumers. We'll give you 10 stores as a test, and we'll put you on shelf next to Topo Chico and some of these other sparkling water brands, and we'll see how it does. And
how nervous were you at that point when you put it in the stores?
Pretty nervous. I was nervous. It was also funny because I was doing a lot of the lot of the ditch digging in the beginning, and so I was the one who was actually wheeling water into the back of a lot of these stores and bars and restaurants on a dolly, and I was wheeling water into the back of these 10 HEBs that they had given us that were all here local, and they were all in Austin. Mm. And I'd get, yelled at by store managers, and or I'd walk in and just say, hey, man, is there any chance of us getting like an end cap, or can we get a display? And I'll never forget going to this one HEB, and this manager who didn't want to give me the time of day, and he was probably like half my age, and I'm like following him around with a dolly with water.
What is an end cap?
Oh, I'm sorry. An end cap is like at the end of an aisle where you've got like an end cap that it might have like a price, and it may have like, like a bunch of product stacked up. That's the end cap.
And that's probably pretty hot space you want to be in.
That's a good place to be,
okay.
but sometimes those end caps aren't positioned like on the sparkling water aisle. They may be like 5 aisles over. So people who are like going to the store for sparkling water, they may just go find the aisle. They're going to like see what they've got, and then they're going to pick their water and leave. But it also allows sometimes for people to be cruising by with their cart who aren't necessarily looking for sparkling water, who, an impulse purchase. So it works both ways. But I'll never forget this one manager. I was trying to have a conversation with him, and he was busy and didn't want to give me the time of day. And so he's like, walk with me. And so he's walking, and I'm trying to like catch up to him, and I'm trying to talk to him. And I asked him, I was like, man, do you guys have an end cap for us? I'd love to fill an end cap. And he's like, man, I don't have any available end caps. I don't, sorry, can't help you. And then after talking to him, and I think maybe, he warmed up a little bit, he's like, all right, follow me. And then we went over this end cap where it was like loaded with chips, and I don't even remember the brand. He's like, go get a cart, come back, take all these chips off.
He put you to work?
He put me to work. He's like, take all the chips off, stack your water, and when I come back, if I don't like it, you're going to redo it. So make it look good. I'll be back in a bit. And so I was like, oh, shit. So I went and got a cart and went out to my truck and loaded it all up with product, brought it back, stacked the end cap, and went and found him, and he came back and looked at it, didn't really say anything, just kind of nodded his head and said, all right, looks pretty good. How do I get one of those hats you're wearing? So I thought, okay, great, I got this guy. So that was the beginning of us, really, getting some opportunities in that particular store. But and it's a store by store basis often, when they'll give you an end cap or give you a floor display and that kind of thing.
I'm sure. Oh, good.
HEB is local in Texas only, correct?
They're only in Texas, and they right now they're like really going after the DFW area.
Gotcha.
Which is sort of that's kind of that's Kroger land up there, and so we're in Whole Foods in many states. We're in all the central markets statewide. We're in HEB. We just got authorized for Kroger, Texas. We just got authorized for Target, Texas. We're already in some Target stores in Dallas and in Houston.
Nice.
And we never really, because we are a premium sparkling water, it's a little higher priced. I mean, it's, somewhere in between like some of like a LaCroix and a Topo Chico, but it's, we consider it to be a premium product, particularly with the give back program and all that. We never really, in the beginning, never really envisioned being like a sparkling water that might be on the shelf at a Target or a Walmart or a Costco, but they actually reached out to us. Walmart reached out to us, and they gave us about a year ago, maybe 6-9 months ago, gave us 500 stores. Texas, wow. Louisiana, I think Arkansas, Mississippi. Anyway, so now we're on shelves at all the big box stores too, or not all of them, but some of them. So you can find us at, local bodegas and some of these smaller markets, but HEB statewide, Central Market statewide, and then Whole Foods. I think we're in 13 states with Whole Foods. They just gave us authorization for 3 more states on the West Coast. So I think we'll be getting this spring. I think we get California, Arizona, Nevada, maybe.
So as you grow across the country, will you remain that your water is sourced from Texas, or if?
Well, that's a good question. And the whole idea behind this, the sourcing our water sustainably, and purifying the water and putting a mineral blend back into it. The whole idea was we didn't like the idea of like Topo Chico. They're pulling water out of the ground in Mexico, in Monterrey, Mexico, and they're trucking that water in heavy glass bottles from one point all over the United States, and like the carbon footprint of that is just kind of, it's absurd. And so we thought, we're not going to tap sensitive water supplies, and let's create a formula that starts with purifying municipal water and then putting a mineral blend back into it, so that we can eventually have different points of production and distribution to cut down on that carbon footprint. So we actually make water in Texas. We make water in Georgia. We're making water in, I believe, upstate New York. And we're making our energy product in Washington.
Okay.
So we've got different points, and there will be, I'm sure, over the lifespan of Rambler, there will end up being other co-packers in other areas across the country making the same exact formula, starting with the purification and then the adding back of the minerals. That will just give us more points of production and distribution and cut down on that carbon footprint.
That's an awesome solution. That seems to be the biggest problem with Topo Chico and their business model with that carbon footprint.
Yeah, and there's another, not to make this all about bashing Topo Chico.
Let's do it. I'm here for it.
Okay, all right. If you guys want to do it, I do it all day long.
Fine by me.
But they also, so about a year ago, probably, I'm just guessing, there was a report on PFAs, which are the microplastics in water. And Topo Chico, there was the report came back that Topo Chico had the highest level of any PFAs of any sparkling water.
That's interesting though, because they're in glass. It seems like you would expect that from like a plastic bottle, or
well, I think it's probably just in maybe the ground source. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I do know that their PFAs were off the charts, really high, like dangerous levels. And so,
well, I imagine Mexico's regulation on their food and water beverage products is probably
not as stringent as ours. I'm guessing. I don't know. And I'm sure Coca-Cola has found a way to remedy that. They had to. There was a lot of people who reached out to us.
Does Coke own Topo Chico?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I guess I failed to mention that. Like right when we got to market, Coca-Cola bought Topo Chico, so it's a Coca-Cola brand.
Okay.
Which has really allowed us to like just remind consumers, like, hey, look, if you're drinking Topo Chico, you're drinking water from Mexico, owned by Coca-Cola, in heavy glass bottles, high in PFAs, high in sodium, or you can drink locally sourced water made in Texas that's sodium free. Our PFAs are non-detectable, that's I'm forgetting where we were going with the PFAs, but ours, because so many people were reaching out after that Topo Chico report, we actually asked our co-packer here in Texas to like run a report on our PFAs so that we could answer to it, and they gave us a report showing that they're non-detectable. So
wow.
So
That's awesome.
it's a really good thing to message.
Hey, Dave, real quick, can you try to tap on the table a little less?
Oh, is it picking
sorry.
it up a little
Sorry,
bit?
got it.
Cool.
Okay.
All good. Thanks for the heads up. Well, and full disclosure, I did not genuinely like drinking sparkling water until very recently. For the majority of my life, I never understood it. I just thought it was water that hurt, and it made no sense to me.
Yeah.
I was like, why would anybody drink this stuff?
The kids call it spicy water.
Yeah, I don't. So I was in that camp for a very long time. It never made sense to me. And then here recently, I don't know what changed. All of a sudden, I love it. But with that being said, I don't know how this works. Like when you carbonate water, I know you can do that obviously, but what does that process look like? And then on top of that, you say add minerals in. I mean, is that like, one of the big metal tanks I envision in a brewery with like a dude with a bucket of minerals? I mean, how does that process work?
Well, the carbonation, the CO2, is injected into the water. The minerals it's really like we have it's hard for me to talk about like, measuring out like minerals, like for like a gigantic bright tank of water. If we're going to do a run of water, it's hard to know like how much that is, but I've seen our minerals and they come in gigantic bags, just white powder that has been measured out. So the calcium, the magnesium, and the potassium, those are all mixed in and they're in one bag. And so when it comes time for a run, they actually mix that in with the water. They make a slurry with the water and the minerals, and then that gets pumped into the bright tank with all the water, and that's where it gets carbonated. And I'm not exactly sure where in the process and in the line the carbonation happens. But to answer your question about the minerals, it's a bag of minerals that gets made into a slurry that gets then put into the water.
Okay.
Are y'all still co-packing with Austin Beer Works, or do y'all have your own setup now?
No, we aren't, because we just outgrew them, and we also needed to get into cardboard. We had to do fridge packs, And so we had to move to a co-packer that had the capabilities of doing cardboard. But yeah, forever grateful to Austin Beer Works for getting us to market. We'll never forget those days of showing up with tacos and tasting the water and saying, okay, it's perfect, let's let it rip.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so now we're in cartons. Oh, and also we haven't talked yet about the flavors. We've we got to market with the original formula. That was probably 2 years of being in market, where we didn't have the flavors. We were all original. And then COVID happened, and all the bars and restaurants shut down. And then that's when we really went to work on developing a couple of flavors and going after retail a little harder. And so we developed lemon, lime, and grapefruit. We just felt like those were two proven flavors that consumers would want, but also two flavors that would make for easy cocktail mixing, and that the bars would want. Which proved to be right. A lot of the bars use lemon, lime, and grapefruit to mix their cocktails with, in addition to the original. So we had original lemon, lime, grapefruit, and then about a year ago we introduced a new flavor, Satsuma, which is a mandarin orange. Satsuma is it's like a small tangerine, loose skin, really sweet, and it grows really well in Texas. So we launched Satsuma a year ago, gave Central Market exclusivity on the launch of that for the first few months. Which was a big hit. Central Market's been a really great partner retailer for us. I mean, they stack Rambler. I mean, like gigantic, like floor pallets of Rambler, and it flies. And they've also been really good to us in terms of like where we're placed on the shelf. Like at least in my Central Market down in South Austin, we're like right here, like at chest high, and it's like it almost takes up the entire aisle. And so really grateful to them. We also have a new flavor that we just rolled out about 3 weeks ago, blackberry.
That's exciting.
Yeah, which is really exciting. So that is and that's slowly starting to appear in a lot of the retailers. H-E-B, there's several stores here in Austin that are already carrying it.
They've already hit the shelves?
Mm-hmm. Central Market has it. So, and really we wanted, the idea of going with Satsuma last year in 2023 and then blackberry this year is that they just feel like Texas fruits that grow well here and just really kind of feels right for our brand.
That's great,
and they're tasty.
Earlier you had talked about how Rambler is kind of a premium sparkling water, and again, as a water novice, what's the difference between a premium and a non-premium sparkle? I mean, they're all spicy water to me. So,
just the price,
again, it's like I feel like there are a lot of things that qualify us as being premium. First of all, the taste of the water. Because
and does that come through the minerals? Sorry to cut you off.
Purifying the water and taking out all of the existing minerality and any impurities that come in municipal water, and then putting back this like special blend that we've created. Carbonating it to the red line. So like our water is carbonated about as high as it'll go without blowing the lid, which is why sometimes like in the heat of the summer, if it's 105 outside, you don't want to leave a Rambler on your dashboard. It's going to blow.
Oh, interesting.
And also sometimes if water's being shipped and it gets thrown around, oftentimes the can bust. It's just because we like having our carbonation as high as it'll go.
I didn't realize there was levels to carbonation.
Yeah, there's levels. You can dial up or dial down the carbonation, and we're at the red line, and we feel like our mineral blend, the fact that we purify the water, the mineral blend that we put back into it, our carbonation level, those tiny sharp bubbles that are so different from like a big explosive Topo Chico bubble that sometimes is even hard to drink, and this elevated packaging. And then the fact that we have a give back program that Texans can feel good knowing that we're taking from Texas, that we're also giving back, and that we're providing monetary support to Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation on an annual basis, along with helping raise awareness and message land and water conservation. So all those things together feel like makes us premium. We're really the only sparkling water giving back like that. So I think consumers recognize it's better tasting. They love the packaging, and they love knowing that we give back.
What are the specifics on the give back? I mean, is it X number of dollars or cents?
No,
per
it's not
can,
a percentage of sales. It's actually a predetermined financial contribution, and so we actually write them a check every year. And every year since we've been in market, I mean, they recognized in the beginning that we were launching a sparkling water, and there's no real profit margins in water. It's like, and so, we started out at a small contribution level, and it's grown substantially, and it's a pretty significant number that we give them now, and we feel good about it.
That's great. What's the ratio or the breakdown between your sales in bars and restaurants versus grocery stores? I'm assuming it's mostly grocery stores.
Yeah, now it is. It's grocery stores, and particularly since we're in grocery stores all over the country now, and oftentimes if we pick up a new retailer, it could come with 100 stores. So, and just like the sell through. So bars and restaurants are great. It's really great for brand awareness and trial. But really, ultimately, if we want to be like a truly successful sparkling water brand, and we do want to be a national brand, and love for someday, I might be dead, but someday for people to talk about Rambler like they talk about Coca-Cola, and that I want it to be a national brand that's in everyone's refrigerator.
That's an awesome goal. I know HEB was a big part of growing locally. Was Central Market the first one that took you out of Texas?
Yeah, so to answer your question about becoming a national brand, our first real taste of that was Whole Foods coming to us and saying, hey, we're going to give you a shot. We're going to give you a Texas, but we're also going to give you a Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. So they gave us 4 states.
What year was that?
That had to be 2019.
Okay.
I mean, I think, probably a year after we
before
got to
COVID?
market. Yeah. We got to market in 2018 via HEB and Central Market, and then Whole Foods soon followed with 4 states, which was really exciting. They've since given us, I think we currently have 13 states with Whole Foods, and then 3 more coming this spring. But that was really an opportunity for us to pause too, though, and think about, okay, wait a minute, we're partnered with Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, which is great at the local level in Texas. But if we're going to become a national brand, we probably need a national conservation effort as well, because, I think someone drinking Rambler in California or Oregon or New York or Florida, wherever it might be, they might like seeing that, but I think they'd probably be happier and feel better knowing if we were giving back in their area. So that's why we reached out to American Rivers and said, hey, we've got a sparkling water. We're partnered with Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation at the local level. We love what you do. We'd love to support. We worked through an agreement with them as well. And so we are partnered with Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation at the local level and American Rivers at the national level. So it allows us to, talk more about the things that American Rivers is doing in different parts of the country, and helping those consumers know that we're supporting them, which is in turn supporting them.
So when you say you work through a partnership with an organization like that, I mean, what does that look like exactly?
Well, it just comes down to okay, well, how do we work this out financially? Like, how can we contribute and help you? And in return, how do we message American Rivers? And that comes down to being able to put their logo on our packaging and being able to talk about them in social media. And then also just helping consumers understand what the partnership looks like, and helping consumers understand that, in Oregon that, that they might be helping the Snake River. So anyway, so that's really just what it comes down to, is just working through an agreement to decide, okay, well, how do we financially support you? And how do we message American Rivers?
Seems like a great win-win.
Oh yeah.
On that.
No, they love it. And the foundation too, that's been great partnerships with both. They really enjoy going to their grocery stores and buying sparkling water and seeing it on the shelf with their logo emblazoned. So it's a win-win for both, for sure.
That's
and
incredible.
for consumers. I mean, there's a lot of options out there on the shelves, and to be able to throw a carton of Rambler in your cart, and know that you're helping by helping us, you in turn are also doing your part. So there's a lot of products out there and a lot of sparkling waters that aren't doing anything. They're just putting money in their pocket.
Yeah, I mean, you've absolutely convinced me. I don't think I'll be buying Topo Chico ever again.
Thank you.
I'm curious, changing topics a little bit. As a hobby landscape photographer, I'm always fascinated by other people in that space. And so when you moved here, it sounded like it was the 80s and were a photographer. I mean, there's got to be some fun Austin stories from back in the day. I mean, what was your photography career?
Boy.
Would you break that down for us?
Yeah. It's it's funny talking about this, and when I sometimes reflect on my crazy life and the different chapters, I'm really fortunate. I've had a lot of fun, and there have been a lot of moments in my life where I've thought, man, I cannot believe I've gotten away with doing some of the things that I've done and having the careers that I've had, because I have been really fortunate. So I grew up in Houston. My father owned an ad agency. And so I was around his agency a lot. I was introduced to, the art world. My father was a copywriter and a photographer, and it allowed me to I knew at an early age what I wanted to do, and if I wasn't going to be a professional baseball player, that I'd probably be in the advertising world. So I think when I was in high school, I was the editor of our high school newspaper, and that's when I picked up a camera. My father taught me the workings of the camera and the f-stop and shutter speed and film speed and all that. So when I got to college, I knew that advertising was what I was going to do, and so I got a degree in advertising. I took one photography class at UT. It was just like the intro to photography, which was kind of a no-brainer. I'd already had some experience, and it was fun. And then I remember telling my dad that I thought that I wanted to be a photographer, and he was a photographer and a copywriter and owned his agency. He did a little bit of everything, and he encouraged me. He said, "Let's don't do that right away." He said, "Just why don't you get a job with an agency and get to work and learn the functions of an agency to decide where you really want to be in that world." And so upon graduation, I got a job with McCann Erickson, where I worked for a hot minute, really just like taking out the trash and having a good time. And then I was fortunate to get a job with GSD&M here in Austin.
Are they an ad agency?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they're a large national agency based here in Austin, founded in 1970, I believe. And
so what year would that be? Like early 90s?
I went to work for GSD&M in 95.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I worked for GSD&M for a decade, from 95 to 2005. I started out in account service, but then quickly, I think I'd been at GSD&M for all of about 6 weeks, and I had an opportunity to go to LA for a TV production. I think it was Chili's Grill and Bar, but stayed in West Hollywood, got to see the beach, went to Santa Monica, and got a taste of LA and Hollywood and production. And then I came back and told my boss, I said, "Hey, I think I'm in the wrong department. I want to be in the creative department. I want to touch creative." And so she said, "Okay, well, let's talk to broadcast production and see if there are any opportunities for you in broadcast as a producer." But it took me probably a year, if not longer, of just hassling the head of production to give me an opportunity. And then finally there was an opportunity for a junior producer, and then I worked my way up to producer. And so then I produced TV commercials for probably 8 of the 10 years that I was at GSD&M. I was in production, spending a lot of time in LA and moving around the country, shooting TV commercials and spending a lot of time in edit bays. And while doing that, I was also in the bars and the live music venues here in Austin, because I was a live music junkie and loved rock and roll. And so I was probably 5 nights a week was seeing live music.
Wow.
And because I had a love for photography, I just started lugging my camera to these shows and shooting my favorite bands, and learning lighting and how to shoot in dark, smoky bars with available stage lighting and no on-camera flash and just high-speed film. And so that really got me excited, because every time I would go see a band and I'd go drop off film, I'd drop off a handful of rolls of film and not have any idea if I have anything worth looking at. And it was always like Christmas every time I'd go pick up a contact sheet, and if there was out of a roll of 36, if there was one really cool shot, it got me fired up. And so it allowed me to really hone in on my skill. I got more and more excited about it. I got more comfortable with it. And then I started getting opportunities, and then I got asked to be on the photography team for ACL Fest. It was the first year of the festival, and I got asked to be on the team.
That's probably what, early 2000s?
Yeah, early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we're 20 years in at least. So for 10 years, I was a stage photographer for ACL Fest and Lollapalooza and Fun Fest. here locally, but I was still also, moving around the bars and restaurants, not restaurants, but the bars and the live music venues, shooting. But early on when I was shooting the live music, I was still employed by GSD&M as a producer. This was just sort of a hobby that I was doing. And they started to take notice of my photography, and one day an art director or an art buyer came to me and said, "Hey, we've seen your photography. Do you want to do this Southwest Airlines job? There's an annual report, and we really like your style, and we think you'd be good for this." And it scared the hell out of me, but I thought, man, I got to do this because I'm interested in photography. And even though my dad sort of kind of discouraged me from doing it, I'd been working for GSD&M for a decade, and I was a little burned out, and I just kind of wanted to see if I could do it. So I took the job, I took the opportunity, and shot the annual report, and it turned out great. And then the next year they asked me to do it again, and then they started funneling other jobs to me. And then it really gave me the confidence to step outside of GSD&M and being employed and work for myself. And so I started hustling. I built a website and started working on a portfolio and started getting jobs. But I knew that I was also interested in comedy, and I was interested in portraiture. And so, shooting those bands, also I started shooting band portraits. But I knew that I was interested in comedy and just wanted, if I was going to develop a style and be a photographer, that I wanted to have my work to have some sort of quirk, and I wanted to entertain. And I'll never forget, I was actually in LA on my very last production job. I was producing a commercial, and I remember being on the 405, and I remember seeing an outdoor board for the 40-year-old virgin, and it was Steve Carroll, and it was a beautifully lit, what looked like a school portrait. I mean, you guys have all seen it. It was the poster for the film. Mm-hmm. And I remember it grabbing me, and I remember driving by thinking, what an amazing shot. As simple as it was, it just looked like a school portrait of Steve Carroll, but it was beautifully lit. And so I got back to my hotel, and I did some research and found out that it was shot by Art Streiber, who's one of the world's greatest photographers. He lives in LA. And anyway, so I reached out to him and just said, "Hey, I really love your work. And in particular, I saw this photo you did of Steve Carroll, and I'm really inspired. I'd love to assist you if you ever in Austin." And he said, "I sometimes do come to Austin, and but you should take my workshop in Santa Fe. I'll be doing it this spring." And so I signed up for his workshop immediately and went and hung out with him and got to know him and got to become friends with him and started getting Christmas cards from him every year. Cool. And then every time he would come to Austin, I would assist him. And that's really he really inspired me in my style. That also sort of opened the door and got me thinking about, okay, I need to develop a portfolio, and I want to start shooting in this way where I can laugh my way through the day and entertain people, and at the end of the day have something that people are entertained by. And so I discovered that the World Beard and Mustache Championships were happening in Anchorage, Alaska.
Such a random trip. Yeah. That was not what I was expecting.
No, well, I just stylistically, I was like, all right, I want to shoot interesting people, and I want to have fun doing this. And so I thought, okay, World Beard and Mustache Championships, Anchorage, Alaska. What are the chances that I can go shoot this thing? I reached out to the program director and said, "Hey, man, I want to come do portraits of your contestants." I mean, these guys have wild beards and mustaches, and they're all beautifully styled. And so I asked him if there was an opportunity for portraits, and he said, "Yeah, man." He said, "We're shooting we're having this event at the convention center in Anchorage." He said, "If you want to set up in a room, we'll make an announcement that there's a photographer doing portraits." So I shipped a backdrop to Anchorage. I flew to Anchorage with all my equipment, all my lighting equipment, and I set up a studio in this room, and they made an announcement. And so for I think it was 8 hours, I did portraits nonstop. I think I took one bathroom break and ate a slice of pizza standing up, because it was like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like there were so many people there, and these guys are all exhibitionists, and they all wanted to have their photo taken. So there was just a line out the door, and so I just shot and shot and shot, and I ended up with 120 portraits. And I came back and put them on my website, and it started getting picked up by news outlets. I think ABC News did a story on it. Wall Street Journal.
On the
I think
on
New York
the
Times.
on you
my,
or the
on my,
on
my
your work?
portraits
Wow.
of the World Beard and Mustache Championships. And this is a long time ago. This is probably 2009, I think.
So that was still film, or were you digital at that point?
It was the dawning of digital.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, which allowed me to was less scary. Allowed me to I was able to set up my lights and kind of craft my light and see on my camera what I was going to get, so I could feel good going into this thing. I mean, I can't imagine shooting 120 portraits on film and then getting your film back and discovering that your lighting was terrible or that you weren't exposed properly.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, man, if that was film,
No,
that was
man.
just a ton of film.
Well, some of those those early commercial days that I did, I shot film and talk about it. I mean, just terrified, handing over a Ziploc bag full of slide film and not knowing if you got it.
My dad wanted to be a photographer way back when, and in college took a photography class, went and shot a friend's wedding. The entire thing the exposure was off. There wasn't a single good photo, and my dad is scarred from photography because of that.
Well, I shot a wedding or two in the early days, and I remember getting my film back and thinking, this is garbage, and I'd be pissed off if I were these people, and I'd never want to shoot a wedding again.
Yeah.
But then I also had an opportunity to display those portraits that work in New York at it's called Chelsea Market. It's a place in Chelsea, this big sort of retail market type place where they're restaurants and people thousands of people every day walking through. And they saw the work and allowed me to line the walls with my portraits large. Wow. So 2 feet by 3 feet, gold ornate frames of these ridiculous beards and mustaches. And so that was a really cool opportunity, and that's when I really felt like, holy cow, I'm doing it, and this feels good. And I actually remember going back to it stayed up for a couple of months, and I remember going back to New York to take the show down, and I saw Michael Richards, Kramer from Seinfeld, actually looking at a photo, and I remember thinking, man, what a moment. So anyway, that's really how I got started in getting opportunities to shoot commercial, where advertising agencies, if they had a campaign, if they had a shoot that called for portraiture that might be sort of unique and quirky and its style, that's when I started getting calls, and that's when it felt really good. Okay, I've sort of crafted a style, and now people sort of think of me for shooting this kind of weird, ridiculous stuff, and this will be fun. So I did that for 15 years. I was a commercial shooter, and then toward the end of that, actually, because of my broadcast production background and producing TV commercials, I started directing some commercials and some video content for GSD&M and other agencies, which was interesting and fun. It was just it was different because I was just behind a monitor, mainly working with the talent and directing, and I had somebody else operating camera and doing all the lighting, and so that was interesting and fun. And right when I was sort of kind of feeling good about all that is when we had the idea of doing Rambler, and then I just decided, man, I got to throw everything at this sparkling water idea and see if this is going to work. So I bailed on photography the year that we got to market in 2018. So I haven't shot my camera in 6 years now.
Well, that's what I was curious if you still got out just for fun, hobby.
No, it's all on my phone now. And I mean, I do our social media, and I've got a couple of teenage daughters, and so I photograph their volleyball and basketball games and their events. But in terms of I still yesterday got an email from somebody who thinking that I still shoot, saying, hey, can you bid on this job? And I always just refer other photographers.
Yeah, so I just don't care too.
Yeah, I'm all in on Rambler.
Yeah. What was that transition like? Nerdy photography question here, though. I mean, I picked up a camera when we were far in the digital age, and so I started with a mirrorless camera in Lightroom, so kind of skipped a lot of the photography journey. But I mean, you were a professional photographer when everything went from film to digital. So I mean, what was that like? How was the industry responding during that time?
Well, in the dawning of the digital, the cameras were crap, the sensors were crap, and I remember buying my first digital camera and thinking, wow, this is amazing. I can see what I'm getting immediately, and I can make any adjustments on my exposure. And I remember buying a digital camera and that night taking it to go see the Gourds play And I'm sure Kevin Russell and the rest of the band, they were probably annoyed with me because I was just like, I shot the entire show because I wasn't having to, limit how much I was shooting. Whereas, before when I was shooting film, I was being really careful and really artful about the shots because I might take 2 or 3 rolls of film and you just gotta not, you can't overshoot. But with digital, I was just like flying around like all night long and just overshooting, which, I think today it's just a different craft now. It's like now you can overshoot and you can shoot a ton and it's just like a numbers game now. But back in the day, you had to be thoughtful. It's funny, there's Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know if you remember Napoleon.
Oh yeah, big time.
Napoleon
Vote for
Dynamite.
Pedro.
Yeah. Well, and his girlfriend was a photographer.
Oh yeah, that's
and there's
right.
that one
yeah.
scene where she was taking a portrait and she clicks a shutter and I was like, okay, got it. And like she took one shot.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was back in the day. You just like sometimes you just took a small number of images and it's like, all right, well, I think I got it.
I think that it's kind of it's definitely shifted the art form because exactly what you're saying. For me, it's easy to go out and I go on a landscape photography type hike and I can shoot 500 photos easy. Depending on what, especially if it's like birds or wildlife or something. But yeah, definitely, there's a part of me that wishes or maybe might still buy a film camera because it's so easy to go out there and overshoot, and then it's kind of hard. Like it challenges the art form a little bit. Maybe it doesn't, but it's interesting. I tell a lot of new people when they're getting into photography, go out and overshoot and learn your style, learn what photos you like, and then as you get better, you won't have to overshoot as much, and you can start getting more crafted.
Yeah.
And so now when I go out, I almost challenge myself a little bit to try not to overshoot because I used to go out and do 500-600 photos easy.
Yeah, no, it's a luxury now, but I would say it certainly makes it easier to kind of learn the craft and hone your skill. And there's something really cool about like instant gratification, but also something really cool about handing over some rolls of film to a lab and then going back and getting a contact sheet and looking at it. I mean, that's exciting. That's fun. But I would say if you're for anybody who's wanting to get into photography now, I'm removed from it, so I don't even know if I should be the one giving advice on photography and getting into it now, but I would do both. I would shoot digital, but also carry a film camera, throw a roll of film in it, and I think just like that's an exciting thing to work through that and understand how lighting really works. So
yeah, I think film kind of forces you into that a bit more for sure.
Yeah.
The iPhone cameras, excuse me, the iPhone cameras nowadays are incredible.
Yeah, they're wild. And again, like, I mean, I do our social media, and oftentimes I'm shooting a can of Rambler and some food or a cocktail or whatever it might be, and it's all done on my iPhone, and it's, throw it in portrait mode, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, a little Lightroom action. And
yeah, man.
It's amazing, yeah.
Well, and it's also, like, there at your fingertips. Like, the media is already in your phone and ready to go.
So much easier having to go home, develop film,
I mean,
do the hard drive and the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't want to download files and process files and all that.
Well, what's the future of Rambler? Have y'all had any discussions or landed on Coca-Cola's radar?
We've there have been a couple of beverage companies to reach out to us, asking questions and wanting to talk. I think it's too early. We're still focused on growing this business and building this brand, and like I wake up every day really proud of what we've built. And I mean, who knows? One day somebody might come knocking and might say, "Hey, we really love your sparkling water, and here's a whole lot of money." I mean, and that's something, cross that bridge later. But right now, it's like I'm really happy and fortunate to have a sparkling water brand to work on that I love drinking it. It's in my refrigerator. It's all I drink. I rarely even drink flat water. I mean, and there's a lot of people who ask that question, like, is it okay to drink nothing but sparkling water? Do you have to drink flat water to be properly hydrated? And the answer is no. I mean, like, sparkling water is just as hydrating as flat water. The only reason why you might not be as hydrated is you might not drink as much of it because of the carbonation. You might just get bloated. But sparkling water is hydrating, and I sometimes will guzzle a glass of flat water, but I probably have 6 to 8 cans of Rambler a day, just out of habit. I'm just always drinking it. And again, the minerals are good for you, so
yeah.
And sodium free.
What's your go-to flavor?
Original.
Just original, yeah.
Original, and the flavors are all really good because they're all essence. They're not. There's no sweeteners. There's no artificial flavoring. There's no. I mean, it's all we use like the. I think it's like the oils from the rinds is how they derive our flavoring, and so it's all natural. Grapefruit is really good. I mean, that's one of my favorites because it's so light and essenced. The Satsuma is it's kind of a new favorite for a lot of people, but I think this blackberry that just got to market, I've had a lot of people who've had it, who have reached out, either who know me personally or just through Instagram, to say, "Holy cow, this is my new favorite flavor," and you nailed it. So.
Where can we find that locally? Where can you, is that Central
Some
Market?
HEBs have it. Central Market has it.
Okay.
I do know that there's some HEBs that where it's just hard to keep it on shelf. I mean, it's flying. Yeah, just more
Will
grocery
Rambler,
stores.
I'm sorry. Will Rambler ever be like a soft drink machine, where you can get it from a machine at Pete's Areas or something?
Well, I think that comes down to distribution and there are certain companies that operate those vending machines. Interesting about Pete Terry's. Love Pete Terry's. I mean, my daughters and I eat our fair share of Pete Terry's weekly, but
Mr. Terry lives here local as well.
yeah, he does. I think I had an email banter with him like maybe 2018, right when we got to market, to say, hey, would you have any interest in carrying Rambler? And he was interested in the brand and loved the brand, but wasn't ready to bring in like a canned beverage. So I'd love to continue that conversation.
I was just thinking Dr. Pepper comes in a can, so you get it at a fast food joint, the deal, if it's just carbonated.
Yeah, and the soda fountain things.
Yeah, so I was just curious.
I'm sure
you mean like from a soda fountain, like actually like
have Rambler as a large cup and fill it up.
It's possible. That's an operations sort of thing to work through. The reason why we might not do that and why we've asked people, restaurants have asked us to keg Rambler, hard to control the minerality and the carbonation when it comes to that. And so we're really careful about, the production of this and just wanting to make sure that every can that is consistent.
You might lose some quality control putting it in having someone else
essentially
mix it.
Yeah, and so it's you're right, it's quality control and just consistency. But who knows? I mean, someday we'll see.
Very cool. Well, what have we missed on the Rambler story? What else do we need to get out there about you guys?
Well, we also have an energy drink, and a lot of people don't even know that.
Yeah, I had no idea. Tell us about that.
So we have an energy drink that's Yopon, and Yopon is North America's native caffeine. It's a holly bush, and the leaf is caffeine. The bush has a little red berry on it, and it grows wild, and it's probably in everyone's front yard. So we actually source Cat Springs Yopon down near Sealy, use that as our concentrate, and so it's a cousin to yerba mate, which is a South American plant. And again, Yopon is North America's native caffeine, and so it's a all-natural. Essentially, it's a tea. Mm-hmm. It comes in 16-ounce cans. We've got 2 flavors: peach and blackberry mint. It's about 120 milligrams of plant-based caffeine. So there's no crash, there's no jitters. It has a small amount of natural cane sugar. They're delicious. It's a really good pick-me-up, and those are. Our focus is sparkling water, but we saw an opportunity to get in the energy business as well. And so, Rambler Energy can be found in some grocery stores. Whole Foods and Central Market both carry it. It's in, I think Wheatsville might have it. It's in, I think, you can find it at like Tom's and a lot of convenience stores around town. So we got sparkling water and we've got energy and anyway, I'm proud of what we're doing.
That's very exciting. There's a Tom's right here. I'm going to go look for it.
Go look for it.
I'm tired today. I feel like I need one. Now you got me thinking about caffeine. Well, very cool. I from a conservation's perspective and just the way you guys are running the business, I'm very impressed and very thankful to have you guys doing it. It's very rare to see a company, doing a can like this, working with the state park system and giving back. And so I think it's incredible. I'm very thankful to have you guys. I don't want to cut it short. I mean, is there anything else we'd like to talk about with your life story, Rambler, anything along those lines?
You don't want to know any more about my life. It's pretty crazy right now, but a lot of work, having a lot of fun.
That's great.
Yeah, man.
Is there
trying to stay hydrated and keep everybody else hydrated.
Do you want to give Instagram info, email? I mean, do you want people getting a hold of you, anything like that?
So our website is ramblersparklingwater.com. Our Instagram is Rambler Austin. Look for us around town, all throughout Texas and beyond. This past year, we were the official sparkling water of ACL Fest, which was really cool and fun.
Awesome.
We'll be doing that again this year, taking on other sponsorships, other festivals. We're actually going to get outside of Texas, and we're going to be the official sparkling water of a festival in Pasadena, California in May called Just Like Heaven, which is going to be a fun festival. It takes place at the Rose Bowl or just outside of the Rose Bowl.
Very cool.
In a park right adjacent to the Rose Bowl. And so now it feels, and last summer we actually were a part of the GoPro Mountain Games in Vail, Colorado. So these sponsorship opportunities, this is a great way for us to be able to, get some brand awareness and trial and in markets where we're now sitting on grocery shelves. So we'll be doing a lot more of that kind of thing. But man, we're just having fun, and I love hearing from people every day that, holy cow, you guys are really doing it, and I see you out there, and water tastes great. So
I love it. Last question. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say congratulations on all the success.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I can't wait to see what y'all make out of it.
Thank you.
What about the merch?
Oh, merch is available
Where
through
people
our
get
website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this guy right here.
Yeah.
This was a hat we did last spring, summer, which was a big hit. This thing's flying.
Yeah.
It's an all mesh lid, but we've got some other merch. We did some winter merch. So we've got some beanies and some hoodies, and so we'll try and elevate that merch game and give people what they want.
Cool. That's very exciting. Well, thank you, Dave. We really appreciate the time and having you come on.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you.